Will April 2nd, 2025 be remembered as the day America took back control of its economy, or the day it triggered global economic chaos? President Donald Trump has declared April 2nd as Liberation Day. And while it may sound patriotic, it's also lighting a fire under global markets, businesses, and everyday consumers. This bold declaration is part of Trump's new protectionist trade policy, a strategy focused on high tariffs meant to force America to rely less on foreign products and more on its own industries. But will it work? Or will it spark a worldwide trade war that ends up costing us more than it saves? Let's break it down. Trump says he wants to liberate America from its dependence on foreign-made goods. This isn't the first time he's used the term. He's previously called both his re-election and his inauguration Liberation Day. But this time, it's all about the economy. His goal is clear: bring manufacturing back home, bring jobs back to the US, and stop getting ripped off by other countries. He's pushing for what he calls reciprocal tariffs. What does that mean? Basically, if another country charges a tax on something we send them, we're going to charge the same tax when they send that same thing to us. Trump often uses Canada's high tariffs on US dairy products as a key example. He claims this kind of trade setup has hurt American farmers and businesses for decades. So, he wants to level the playing field. Sounds fair in theory, right? But here's where things get tricky. The exact details of the tariffs Trump plans to introduce are still unclear. And that's not by accident. Keeping the world in suspense, Trump is playing his cards close to his chest. It's a classic Trump move, creating uncertainty to gain negotiating power. But that uncertainty also creates fear. Markets hate surprises, and this one is massive. Let's look at the possible tariff options being discussed. One idea is a flat 20% tariff on all imported goods, no matter where they come from. Another idea? Target just a few countries, like China, Canada, and Mexico, with much higher tariffs. Then, there's the possibility of sector-specific tariffs, focusing only on certain industries like cars, electronics, and steel. Or, Trump could mix and match, targeting both countries and industries all at once. Whatever the final choice is, the impact will be huge. Now let's talk about what's already happened leading up to April 2nd. This isn't just talk. Some tariffs are already in place. For example, Trump has hit China with a 20% tariff on all imports. Canada and Mexico, they're facing 25% tariffs with limited temporary exemptions. A universal 25% tariff on many foreign goods has already started to shake things up. And here's a big one. Starting April 3rd, a 25% tariff will hit all imported vehicles. At first, this will only apply to fully assembled cars. But soon after, it will extend to include car parts too. Why does this matter? Because America imports millions of cars and car parts every year. The White House expects this single move to generate over $100 billion a year. But critics warn it could backfire hard. Let's say you're planning to buy a new car. You could end up paying $6,400 more for the same vehicle. Car manufacturers rely on global supply chains, especially from Mexico, Japan, and Canada. With tariffs in place, their costs go up. And guess what? So do yours. Now think beyond cars. Let's talk groceries. Since 2020, food prices have already jumped by 25%. Add new tariffs on imports like sugar, meat, and produce, and prices could rise even higher. It's not just food. Phones, laptops, TVs, most are made in Asia. Tariffs mean higher prices for all of them. So, while Trump urges Americans to buy American, many families simply don't have the luxury of choice. They buy what they can afford. And rising prices make that harder. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger economic picture. Studies suggest that Trump's tariff strategy could cut US GDP by 0.4%, eliminate more than 300,000 full-time jobs, and raise $1.5 trillion in new tax revenue over 10 years. But that tax revenue comes at a price: slower growth, higher prices, and fewer jobs. Proponents say that money could be used to fund schools, healthcare, or infrastructure. Critics argue that it's simply a hidden tax on working Americans. And what are other countries saying? Let's just say they are not staying silent. Canada has announced $155 billion in retaliatory tariffs on US. Mexico is preparing a full range of countermeasures. China has already imposed new tariffs on US crude, oil, and natural gas. And the European Union? French President Emmanuel Macron said Trump's policies will destroy jobs and tear apart supply chains. Meanwhile, China, Japan, and South Korea have pledged to cooperate on trade, creating a united front against US tariffs. This is starting to look like the early signs of a global trade war. Financial markets are reacting, and not in a good way. The S&P 500 has been swinging wildly. Tech companies like Tesla have taken big hits. Investors are nervous. April 2nd could either calm fears or make them much worse. It all depends on what Trump announces. Let's talk about the industries most at risk. Automotive, obviously. With nearly 30% of imported vehicles coming from Mexico, production delays and price spikes are likely. Agriculture is another one. Farmers are facing higher costs for imported machinery, fewer buyers overseas due to retaliation. Even gas prices may climb. Tariffs on Canadian oil could hurt American refineries and raise prices at the pump, especially in the Midwest. And regular consumers, from clothes to kitchenware to kids' toys, prices are likely to rise. So, what's the upside? Trump argues that this tough love will force the US to stand on its own 2 feet. By making foreign goods more expensive, we'll build our own factories again. We'll hire more American workers. We'll make more here and depend less on others. In short, America will become self-reliant again. But the road to that dream is filled with risk. Will companies really shift manufacturing back to the US? Or will they just pass higher costs to consumers and shrink their workforce to stay afloat? And what if other countries double down, close their markets, and shut America out? If that happens, we may face not just a recession, but a global slowdown. So, as Liberation Day approaches, here's the big question. Is this the dawn of American economic freedom? Or the start of a dangerous new era of trade conflict? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, April 2nd will be a day to watch. For investors, for workers, for families, and for businesses. What happens on Liberation Day won't just affect America. It will echo around the world. Stay informed, stay prepared, and make your voice heard. Because economic policy affects all of us. And we all deserve a seat at the table. Don't let this moment pass you by. Let's keep the conversation going.